Hello and welcome back. My name is Adrian and welcome to the week number 3 of the November Singlass kit. The first 2 weeks we did our little bird here, and then the second week we did the Dragonfly, got some antennas there. And now for the third week I'll have to check around to find the correct pattern here. I'm actually going to turn this light on right here too. Light us up a little bit better here. And let's see. Oh, here we are. I believe we are doing this flower today for the week number 3. And hey, Michael. Hey, Valerie. Thank y'all for joining us. Hope y'all are doing well. Now, as you all know, we've got a few. Hey, Mary Langworthy. We've got these 4 glasses here. Now, this flower we can make into kind of whatever you want with these different colors here. And so what I think we're going to do is we're going to do these the same color. So 1, 2, 3. Let's see, and I think we'll do 4 and 5. And I think we'll do these the same color, 1, 2, 3. We'll go ahead and do that one the same also, and then we'll do a third color here. So I think we're going to go with the white, yellow, and blue. So I think we are going to do these as the, let's see, I think we'll do the center as the yellow, and then we'll do white, 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 and then we'll do these as the blues. And we're going to kind of do the texture, if it's got one, in this way, just like that. So that is our plan for today. Thank you all for joining the second week here. We're going to go ahead and get started by placing all of our little pieces here like normal. And hope everyone's doing well today. All right. Let me know what is up and new with you on this Sunday, November 16th. Now, of course, you're always going to want to keep in mind which side is the smooth and which is the rough side. So you can kind of place your pattern on the smooth side. It'll be easier to cut that way. Make sure to kind of press it nicely and it will stick quite well. And this is our vinyl adhesive backed templates that we sell. So if you wanted to do this project along with me, you can purchase that kit, and it comes with all the glass and patterns you need to do this project too. So without further ado, we've got all of our white pieces down. And we're not going to be using this iridescent glass for today, so we can set that aside. We've got our yellow piece. We're just doing one piece right in the middle. And we'll kind of put this about right here should do, kind of keeping with that sort of grain of the glass, if you will. And now we've got our blue pieces left, and we are going to place those. This is kind of a random texture, so we're just going to kind of place them to where they are nice and efficient. All right. And we've got our there we go. We've got our little patterns down. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick sweep here. Got some debris left over. All right. And now we're ready to pretty much, oops, finding that my little thing was on the ground. Can you hear me now? Going to go ahead and get our little glass all cut up now. So let's see, we're going to need our grossing pliers here. Got the mini and the regular. And we're going to need our glass cutter here. And we are pretty much ready to get started. So what I like to do is start by separating out all of the pieces so that we don't mistakenly break into one of the pieces that we want to use. So we get that separated, we can put the rest away, and then that keeps us having a nice yield. So we've got plenty of glass to use for other projects. We can either do this project more than once, or we can use this glass on any other project. And all the kits we sell have almost no glass repeated. There are only so many whites and black glasses that we sell. And so that's kind of the only one that's repeated a few times, but it is a pretty popular one and a useful glass, so can't hurt to have a little extra stock of it, especially if you are doing quite a few projects. And the way I like to operate here is I try to do, or what we've been doing is one project per week. And even with doing that, I still have plenty of glass, even too much glass left over. So definitely, if you want to kind of slowly build up your glass, it's a good way to go. And we've got our last color here. Oops, and this glass, it has a lot of little ripples and stuff in it. It kind of broke right through the middle. So we're going to replace our templates here. This is a Wismac glass. And occasionally something like that can happen, where it really just kind of broke with a little bit of pressure from the glass scoring tool. So we're just going to sweep that to the side for now. And we're going to go ahead and switch over to our free camera. We can see the pieces nice and close here. And so now what we are going to do is go ahead and do all the scoring to separate our pieces. And then we can go through and do every single score to cut it out exactly the shape that we want. And while we're kind of separating them, we might as well tap into existing shapes so then we at least have one side already cut. And you can never have too much glass from Mary Langworthy. I can't agree more. It's always helpful, especially when you need a certain color, and there it is. Now it is a bit of a double-edged sword. You have to make sure to organize it properly so you know what you have. So that can be a little bit tricky if you're not careful. And there we have it. So we've got all of our pieces separated here, and now we are going to go ahead and start to score all the edges. And whenever you're cutting this glass here, what I like to do is use my other hand to stabilize the piece and also to help push the cutter along. And we are just trying to line it up right with the edge of that vinyl. And you can almost use that vinyl as a bit of a guide, but you want to make sure not to go on top of it, because then it will not cut very well at all. Because it needs to make that little scratch into the piece of glass. And the other thing is that you want to hear that little sound. I'm not sure if the camera is picking it up. I'll be quiet here for a second. So that's just that little that little scratching sound of the little scoring wheel right in the middle of this thing, kind of making that shallow scratch into the glass. And then that's going to make a nice weak point for us to go through and break along that score line. Then we have the shape that we want. And this white Wismac is a little bit of a tricky gloss. It might be just this sheet. You know, all this gloss is made by hand. So sometimes there are imperfections that make it a little bit harder to work with. And even some glasses that have a pretty heavy rippled texture, for example, will be pretty difficult to cut even on the smooth side. It's just the nature of the beast with these kind of textured glosses sometimes, because that texture transfers even to the smooth side. But we've got plenty of gloss here, just in case we need to do a few recuts. And there we have it. We've got the pieces all scored. And Michael says that it reminds him of the sound of tearing paper, and I would have to agree. Now that you mention it, it does pretty much sound just like that. So it's a pretty good comparison. There we go. So once we have our pieces done, we are going to set them aside to do some grinding. And as I mentioned, we are going to be grinding these pieces, so you don't have to cut them 100% perfectly. There is a little bit of room for error here that we can quickly and easily clean up on the grinder. Now, if you, of course, want to do less work, you're going to want to cut it as closely as possible. But if it's not perfect the first time, we can always go back and fix it. And I always plan to just grind everything down anyway, because then I have a nice perpendicular edge on every single piece. And that is something that I like. So there we have it. Alrighty. And you can see that these pieces are pretty simple to cut. Now, something like this inside curve, it's a little bit weak at the point here. So what I'm going to do is just take off a lot of that meat here, and then that will put just a little bit less pressure on the edge of on that tip of that piece of glass. You know, you really, if you have a lot of pressure, that's a spot that it's really likely to break. Sometimes you can get away with it. There we go. So far, so good. This is a relatively easier pattern to do. Got some straight lines, got some pretty gentle curves, and since it's kind of just a flower, you can kind of use whatever glass you've got. So if you've sourced some glass used or Facebook Marketplace or something like that, or even got some free small pieces of glass from somewhere, you can always practice. This is a good practice pattern. It's a little bit more than the most basic type of pattern, but still a overall pretty decent, you know, it's a pretty decent pattern for the beginners. So we've got quite a bit of debris here. That's why I like to do all of the scoring first and then go back and do our breaking so that we can avoid all that sweeping in between each piece. And so, like I said, this is a overall pretty simple, pattern here. And we're already kind of moving on to our grinding. So that's kind of a telltale sign that this is probably a bit of one of the easier patterns. So we've got our grinder. As always, we've got our little bottle of water here. And I've got a little hole poked on the top. And we can just saturate this sponge here, and it will just continuously apply water into that grinder head. And then once our pieces are ready, we can drop them into our little glass bath, I call it. And then we can move on to our kind of cleaning them up and prepping for the foiling. So with the grinding here, we're just pushing the edge of the glass. So if you look closely, let me back up for a second. It's hard to tell. Let me actually switch over here to my close camera. But you can kind of see that there's some blue around the edges, like right here on this corner. And so what we have to do is grind all the way down to the white template. And that's going to give us pretty much a perfect shape. And it's probably better to overgrind than undergrind because the pieces will fit just a tiny bit better. If you don't grind it down enough, you could have an issue with the pieces not fitting as well. And sometimes the patterns will pop up if some water gets up underneath it. So that's pretty good. I'll probably just do one more round here, all the way around. And then I think it'll be really, really good and ready to kind of clean up. Now I drop it into the little glass bath because we want to keep the edges from drying up with the glass dust that is generated whenever we do the grinding. So that's why we go through and do the, keeping it in our little cup of water. And many people, they'll use a tray, like a little deli meat tray or something like that. And that's another good way instead of the cup, because it has more width and length, whereas the cup, it just has a lot of height, which is not as useful compared to the sort of footprint of the container. Drop that in there, and again, these are pretty easy pieces to cut, so there's really not much grinding on my end today. And that being said, we're moving along quite well through these pieces. And I did actually forget to bring another roll of the black back. So we will be using the silver back today. And we may still patina it black, or we may just leave it silver. We'll see. There we go. So that's our biggest piece. It does barely fit in here, but it did fit. So that's why the tray is a little bit more superior. Because if you have bigger pieces, they really don't fit very well in the cup. You know, lying down flat. They might be sticking up kind of like this, but that's harder. You know, you need a lot more water, and then it's kind of harder to fish them out, the pieces that are at the bottom. So that's why the tray is a little bit more superior. And we do have the holidays coming up, so it'll be a nice restful time for everyone. And let's see, next week will be the 23rd. So that is a quite a ways into November already. Crazy how time flies. Pretty soon it'll be January once again into the new year. There we go, looking pretty good. So this one also barely fits in there, barely. But in this case, close enough is good enough. All right, and we got a few more pieces here. And if you are a little bit concerned with the glass, you know, on the edge of your fingers here, you can wear some gloves, or they do have some different tools that will kind of protect your fingers, but you can still put pressure. And so check into some of those. I know we saw one called the Thumbaroni, something like that, and it's sort of shaped like a thimble. And a lot of people do also use just edge, finger protectors, and so that's another option. I don't have that, but I might look into that just to present that other option to everybody. And we've got a little bit of water left here. Just about enough. There we go. And we've got two more pieces here. And I personally do take off the pattern right after, and we don't need the, we don't really need it at this point. We're pretty much done with that. So I take that pattern off before I put it into the little cup of water. And Valerie mentioned that she purchased, there's an item. It is, I don't know what the name of the product is, but everyone refers to it as a cookie. And it's essentially a little kind of like circular tool that you can kind of hold, and it helps you to separate that glass edge from your fingers, and you can kind of push it into the edge of the glass and apply that force right onto the wheel here. And so, yeah, let me know what you think about it, Valerie. I'm kind of curious to see how well it works. And you can kind of see all the mess that this grinding makes. You can kind of see all over my finger. It's got a lot of that white glass dust. So that's why we drop it into our little bath here. Make sure that we try to avoid all those edges from getting all this stuff just caked and dried on there. If you do, it's not the end of the world. It just takes a little bit of extra effort to dry them off, which again is not the end of the world. And there we have it, our last piece, all done. And that is pretty much it for the glass grinding today. And Mary mentioned that she's got the NYX Grinders Mate, but hasn't tried it yet. Yeah, let me know how those products work out for y'all. All right, we're going to get out our microfiber cloths here. Now, what we want to do, or what I like to do, is to get the cloth spread out here like this, and I like to kind of put a couple pieces on there, and then as I dry them off, put them onto my pattern. I can check to see how well they are fitting. And Joel, thanks for joining. Joel mentioned that he uses his all the time. Gotcha. Must mean you like it. Probably wouldn't keep using it if you didn't like it. So good. I'm glad that these tools are working out for y'all. Might have to look into those. So there we have it. We've got our little first piece done. And once it is, I just put it onto its spot on the pattern, just like this. And then after, we can check to see how everything fits. Try to really focus on those edges. Make sure that they are perfectly cleaned up there. Because that is where the foil will be adhering to. And that's going to be the most important place to make sure that they are all nice and cleaned up. And these are pretty similar in terms of the shape, so we're going to want to make sure to really pay attention and not accidentally put something in the wrong place. Now this one's going to be easy to know where it goes because we've got a clear spot right on the corner here. There we go, just like that. And the reason why I like to put them out onto our little microfiber here is because straight from the cup they do get very wet, and it kind of saturates our microfiber cloth very early in the process. And then it's a little bit too wet. Then it leaves the pieces just a little bit wet, which can be a little bit of a hindrance when it comes to the actual foiling, if the pieces are even just a little bit moist. So we kind of have to use a really dry rag to really make sure they're completely completely dry for the foil to adhere properly. And Mary mentioned she cut and ground 7 Sun Cathedral, or maybe Catcher, I think is what she meant to say this week. My thumbs and pointer fingers are sore. I still need to sit and foil them. That is some work. That will do it for you. Excited to see those in the community there, Mary, once you get some of those finished up. That is always a good time. And if you're familiar or unfamiliar with the Stained Glass Mastery community, we do have a community of stained glass artists to share projects, ask questions, and for more experienced people can answer questions. And it's a nice place to check out. We've got some free resources, including all of the patterns for all the projects that we do on this channel. So if you're interested in that, check the link in the description and you can join that free community. And on top of all that, we do free giveaways every single month. And that goes to our stained glass supplies store where you can purchase glass or whatever other tools you need. I think we've got around 9,000 items that we sell. So probably have what you're looking for when it comes to stained glass supplies. And of course, if you are in need or your church is in need of new stained glass or restoration stained glass services or protective covering services, we do also offer that to churches or historical institutions that need some of those services. And so far, we are making some pretty good progress here. And kind of looking back at our patterns here, I'm thinking I might want to actually switch these two. I put this one as white and this one as blue. I think I'm going to switch that and do it the other way around because I think it looks a little bit strange. I kind of did it a little bit wrong. Oops, I got a little piece of iridized granite in there. That must have been from our last project. I remember looking for a piece and I had to recut it. That must have been it. So, oops, on my end, I don't know why I did that. It's become abundantly clear I did it backwards. So we're going to get that fixed right now. And thank you, Valerie. Appreciate that compliment. Regarding the church windows. We had been building up footage for several years and finally hired somebody to help with that. And so now we're able to post these videos every week of some case studies of our finished products. So I've been trying to get all of those out and into the internet. Go ahead and recut these two right here. And hey, Foxglove, thanks for joining. There we have it. We've got these two right here that we need to go through and cut down. And we're just going to speed right through these. There we go. Got our blue piece, and then we can go through and cut the white glass next. Oops. All right, go through and finish these real quick. Oops, I don't even think I scored this one. Oops, cut right through that one. Let's see if I can get this piece. I'll grind this one down really quickly. A little bit of backtracking here since I cut that first piece a little bit wrong as far as the color. So bear with me here for a few moments. Make sure that this is all nice and cleaned off. Set this on our pattern. And then we've got one more to do right here. Oh, we need to make sure to trace it. And we'll get that cut again. All right, got it this time. And now we'll just grind this down. I think we will be good to go. All right, just making sure to knock down all those sharp edges, or at least most of them, make it a little bit more user-friendly. Make sure everything fits pretty well here. And that's looking pretty good. And now I would say we are pretty much ready to start foiling. We can check to see our fit here. There we go. Everything seems to be fitting together pretty well. And we are ready to go ahead and get to the foiling here. So I am going to make a little bit of space, get this stuff out of our way. And we'll get out our beloved Magna foiler. And we've got it loaded up with the silver backed foil. And let's see, where are my little cutters at? Should have them around here somewhere. This little pair will work. All right, we are ready to get to foiling here. I'm going to move the camera, try to get it pretty much in the correct spot here. Switch over to the free camera, and there we have it. We can kind of see what we are doing right here. Just stick that little piece of glass into there. And let's see if I pack this up a little bit. It looks a little bit highly reflective here because we got that silver on there today. And so it just kind of rolls through right onto the edge of that glass. And you can kind of fold over where we started, pull it through. I'll do the little overlap, and then we can just cut it down. And there you have it. That's a pretty good job of centering everything. There you go. We'll have a little bit of an overlap touch-up to do, but that's not too bad. We'll go ahead and set this aside for the burnishing here momentarily. And we can go ahead and continue on with the next this next blue piece here. Kind of fold over that starting point. Oops. Pulled it through a little bit too hard there. Oh, there's the problem. There's like a film. This is a brand new roll. I had a little bit of a film on there. That something was strange. And these curves are pretty not too sharp. They're pretty, they're just not too sharp. So I don't really have to worry about them sort of tearing. Set that aside for the burnishing here. And once we run it through the foiler, we just fold it over. And that gets us all ready for the burnishing. And moving on to our white pieces here. This was the recut piece. And nothing too complex about this step. You can, of course, do this by hand if you don't have the magnifoiler. I just really like using it, so that's why I like to use it. But by no means is it a requirement. And I believe we got more of these in stock. It's a pretty popular item, and quite a few people purchased it. And we were trying to keep that pricing even more competitive than what Creator has it listed at. And so it's been a good product for us. I've enjoyed using it. I try not to push anything that I don't like to use personally. And I think it's been good. Now this is a pretty steep inside curve there, so I'm going to do everything else first. Then we're going to go back and mess with that here in just a moment. Okay, so now pretty much got this curve here. What I like to do is take our fiddle stick and just gradually work that foil over. And if you do this method, as you can see, no rips. So that's why I really like to do that. And Valerie mentioned that she loves hers too. It's been pretty good feedback on that product. So if you are looking for a foiling solution, for me it definitely saves quite a bit of time. I think for most people, they see that there is a pretty substantial time savings. So if you're kind of short on time, or just want to get more projects done a little bit faster, definitely something to look into. But if you enjoy foiling by hand, nothing saying that you can't. There we go. And we've just got our little sun piece left. So overall, not too bad. Then we've just got a bit of burnishing and soldering on this project. Making some good progress today. And actually, the bigger the pieces, the easier they are to foil normally. The little pieces are the ones where you kind of are a little bit more tedious. Got to take your time with them. But the bigger pieces are a little bit easier to do. And just like that, our foiling is done and we're ready to begin burnishing. Go ahead and take away our Magna foiler. And we are going to switch over here to the overhead. We're going to go ahead and go through and sweep up our area here. You can see we use quite a bit of backing right here. So definitely a good bit of foil in kind of a relatively short amount of time, I would say. Okay, we're going to go through and start to burnish our pieces here. Switch over to our free camera. There we go, I think that you can see that. So I like to start with the edge, and then we'll do the face. And we're sort of going from the outside in. Oops, we got a little bit of a issue there. We might have to do a little patch on. After I finish burnishing, then we'll do a little patch on that spot. There we go. And we've got a little spot right here. We'll do that patch. Just tear off a little piece. Just kind of wrap it, and then we'll cut it down with the what do you call that thing? The X-Acto blade. I prefer to use the X-Acto blade. It's just a little bit of a finer, sort of precise tool. There we go. That will do. Set this aside. And we're ready for our next piece. And we can even go through and start to set it onto our actual pattern here. Let's see, where do you go? Right there. As we finish them up, we can just set them onto our pattern. Set this aside for the moment. I like this fid because you can really get into all that texture. Makes it just a little bit easier. Than some of the other fids that are out there. And as you do this burnishing, you can really see that foil sort of just takes the shape of the surface of that glass, all that texture. So if it does that, you know that it is well adhered. And that's what you want. Sometimes I find you have to kind of go over it a little bit extra, especially if that glass is very textured. Make sure it gets into every single little crevice in there. And just do your best to not damage that foil, to rip it. Just trying to really get it to adhere properly, which does take a little bit of force. And as we saw earlier, if we do damage it, we can just do a little patch, and that's all right. There we go. Got our next little piece here. this is our last white piece here. Make sure we get it all nice and adhered, especially to that textured side. There we go. And we've got our little yellow piece here, or our bigger yellow piece here, I should say. This one is very smooth on both sides, and those are going to be the easiest glasses to work with overall. Now, if you are doing a leaded panel, the texture of the glass doesn't matter much beyond the actual cutting. As long as you can get it cut, you know, with leaded glass, you don't actually have to do all the foiling. It just fits into that channel. And as long as that texture fits, you're good. Now, there are some textures you have to use a channel that's a little bit taller, because that texture has such a variation in the height that it goes up to be too thick that it won't fit inside the channel. And so sometimes you have to use a channel with what I call a higher heart, and that will pretty much solve your problem. But it is another extra step. So, but not a big deal, to be honest, as long as you have access to that material. If that material is not readily available for you, then it could be a problem. And you could get, you could grind down that texture. Then you know, it'll probably fit then. That's an option. You could pick out a suitable alternative glass, maybe the same color, just a little bit of a less textured variation. Right here, we're going to put a little extra foil right there. There we go. We can go ahead and cut down the spot we don't need. This side we've got a little bit too much right here. Just trim that down. Go through and trim this spot down too. There we go. Got our first blue piece here. This is another tricky one. It's a little bit similar to the other pieces. So you have to just make sure it's in the right spot. Take a little trial and error. And just a few more pieces to burnish down here. This is called an Arctique texture. It's another pretty simple one to burnish down. So no issues there. Nope, definitely this way. Just a couple more pieces here. Get that edge pushed down first. So kind of a pretty repetitive task on this one for the burnishing here, but an important one. If you don't properly push down all this foil, you will get some impurities and definitely a premature failure on your panel, which you definitely want to avoid. And there we have it, our last piece. Go ahead and turn on our iron. And we're pretty much ready to start soldering here. Get everything pretty much exactly where we want it on our pattern. And that way we will have a good idea of where everything is going to be going. Before we put the flux on, just making sure to really check everything out. And in this case, we've got these two straight edges. Now, if we want to, we can put some straight edges on here. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. And what I like to do is I just use these little pieces of wood with some nails. Oops. And this will make it very easy. I drop my nails through my little piece of wood here, but it'll make it really easy to keep this thing exactly where we want. So I'm going to put that right there. Give it a few taps, grab my other one. Here's one that will do. Oops, this one just split right in half. I do have another one though. And it's a little bit short, but it will do for our purposes today. And there we go. We can kind of push it up against into these two little forms, I call them. And we've got a pretty nice fitting little piece here. So what we need to do now is get out our little fume extractor. We'll get this turned on. And of course we need to, there we go. So this is a pretty good looking panel so far. I'm going to go ahead and get some gloves on before we start messing with all of the flux and all that stuff. All right. Let's see. What is next here? We're going to want to get our flux. And we can go ahead and get out a few more items here. Now this one is at a right angle here. And you could put it and make it into like a book stopper type thing. I'm going to make it into a hanger like normal. Probably hang it from that spot right there. But you can definitely make a second piece, a mirror image, or any other sort of shape like this, and you can use it as a book stopper. You just might need to cut out a little piece to give it a little bit of structure vertically. You can also put something like this in the corner of a window, or something like that will work. Let's see here. We're going to also want this right here. I think that should pretty much do it. So we're going to grab our flux. We'll give it a little mix here. And Since we have these forms on, I'm actually not too worried about them moving around too much. Oh, they do move a little bit. But I'm just going to kind of brush it into the center here. And if anything, it'll move them a little bit tighter. And then we can go back through and really I'm just going to tack them together because the forms will kind of get in the way. They'll be very annoying with the iron sort of hitting them and, you know, with the little nails and everything. So it'll get us started, but we will need to, I'm going to end up taking them off pretty quickly here. So, got a little bit of solder left here. Go ahead and grab our iron. And as usual, I'm going to wire brush off any debris. And I know they say not to, but that's just the way we do it. There we go, looking pretty clean. And we can just go through and right now we're just going to get some joints tacked. So that way we can move our vinyl out of the way, we can move the forms out of the way. And that's pretty much all the joints right there. I'll go ahead and attach these a few spots too. Just because that one little joint might not be quite enough. I think that's pretty good. Go ahead and get this picked up. And I really like this little tiny hammer. It's just right for little tests like this. You don't want to use a big hammer. I can go ahead and put that away. Get this out of our way. And we are ready to continue on with our little panel here. And we're going to go ahead and do a pretty nice rounded bead since we are here working on it. Really doesn't take that much longer to just do this first sort of pass, you know, in a nice way. So we'll put in a little extra effort and do that, even though we're going to have to touch it up later. It'll just make the touch-ups a little bit less going forward. This one's a little bit too hot. I think it might need to cool down a little bit. There we go. And we're going to tin heavily on the edges. There we go. And we're going to go through and touch that up before we're finished. Of course, we have to do all the edge beading. And here is our back side. We'll go ahead and put a nice bit of flux on here. There we go. And we'll do the same thing here. And the way I like to do it, I like to just feed that solder right into the tip and then make contact with the corner of the tip to the foil. And I find that that seems to kind of dispense it pretty evenly and consistently, kind of get the speed and the look that I want. Move this out of the way a little bit. There we go. And we're mostly going to go through now and just do a quick tinning on the perimeter. And now we're going to go through an edge bead, and of course we're going to want to put on our beloved heat-resistant gloves, one of my favorite tools. Okay, so let's go ahead and put those on. And Catherine, look very nice. Thank you, appreciate it. Valerie, nice beading. Thank you, I appreciate that. Let's see, I want to grab my gloves here. All right. Let's see. I'm actually turn the iron off because a little bit of too much heat can make it a little bit difficult to edge bead, and of course too cold will make it impossible, but we can kind of have a fine balance between the two. And instead of going back and forth, what I think I'm going to do is kind of get what I can with this orientation, then I'll swing it the other way and do that. There we go. I want to do our best to try to get these to be nice and rounded as much as possible. There we go. Go ahead and swing this around. Hard for you to see, but we're going to get all this top part. Trying to get it nice and even throughout if possible. Kind of have to heat up a lot of area and then just tap that nice rounded bead all the way through. Let that dry for a moment. And we'll switch, let's see, I think we did this side already. We're going to switch to do it like this now. And this iron is cooling down for sure. We'll go ahead and turn that back on. Getting a little bit too cool. Few more pieces right here. I think this is where we started. Now we've got this top edge to do. Got a lot of solder up here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn our iron off again. It's getting a little bit warm. Try to marry all this stuff up. Get a little bit more flex right here. I think that some of the spots had a little bit of that clear film on it from the packaging. Just see if I can burn right through that. We're going to need to add a little bit of extra solder right here. Grab a little bit on the iron here. I'll leave that solder kind of propped up so I can do that. And Catherine asks, what is the machine? It is a fume extractor, and it's just this corrugated pipe that will take away the flux fumes. I'm actually gonna, oops. See if I can balance this so that I can drip just a little bit of solder onto there. Oops. Just to fill this little void right here. There we go. And you can see that the iron is kind of cooled down a little bit, which is good for this purpose because we don't want it too hot. It'll just drip right through. We do, of course, need it hot enough to still melt the solder. I'm going to turn this back on so that we can just barely melt the solder. Try to bridge this gap right here. Between the void of these two pieces. If we had to, we could put a little wire or something and kind of submerge it in there. And that would fill the void with a solid that we can solder to instead of trying to fill it with our molten solder. But I think we might be able to get it just like that. Okay. Now I'll just fill in a little bit of extra right here on top. And it's best to kind of let it cool off so it doesn't just drip right through if you heat it up. There we go. Something like that will do. And so this is our front side. I'm just going to kind of touch up especially where these little joints are from the edge beating. Might have gotten a little bit roughed up there. There we go. And overall, everything's looking pretty good. Up next, what we want to do is... Oops, we're going to want to touch up this side too. Check for any sort of flat, sunken areas where it might have melted and kind of dripped onto the tabletop. And that looks pretty good. All right, and with this I am pretty, pretty happy with this. This will be our viewing side, and we're going to want to put something right there on the back side, so right here. And for the iron, I actually use this little thing right here. It's just a little on-off toggle, and that's been working really well for me. And I just got that from Amazon.com. So let's see, we're going to want to go through and get our little thing here, make a loop like we always do. Something a little bit smaller, I think. There we go. We're going to twist this. There we go. Something like that will do. We'll go ahead and cut this down. And we can place it right where we want it. Right here. So what we're probably going to do, as a matter of fact, I think I might even, let's see. Yeah, I think I like it more like this. So we're going to put it right there. On here, right here. No, we're going to do it right here on this one. So what we have to do is kind of move this to the edge and grab our grozing pliers. And we are just going to try to submerge this thing right in there. Right there should do. Grab our iron, start to heat some stuff up. There we go. Let that cool, separate, and then we can just kind of fill it in on top, try to make it look pretty much like a bead of solder, just like that. And now we're pretty much done because we're not going to be patining this today. We just want to go through and make sure everything is looking good. Got a few drips and stuff from the edge beading that we want to go through and take care of. So we're definitely going to be doing that. Little drips right here we can take off. And we are going to, of course, want to clean this up. So I do hope that everyone enjoyed today's video, a little bit of a quicker one today. I appreciate everyone showing up to the week number 3 of the November stained glass kit. And of course, we do have one more week here in November. And then, as we talked about, we'll be taking off the month of December. So we will see you back next week. And we've got a pretty fun project, a couple of whales planned for next week. So that, of course, is going to be another Great project to add to the collection of our pieces. And as always, I do very much appreciate everyone showing up to our weekly live stream. And if you're not familiar, check out the Stained Glass Mastery community, where we have tons of free resources, including all the patterns for all the projects that you've seen us make. And it's a great community of like-minded artists to share projects, ask questions, answer questions. And we've got tool list, tutorial videos, and pretty much everything you need for your stained glass journey. So again, thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next week for the week number 4 of the November Stained Glass Kit. All right, thanks a lot. Have a great day. Goodbye.